Okay. Hello out there to YouTube land. Uh it's been a long time since I've live streamed, so I'm not even sure if this is working correctly. Okay, hi confusion. I see somebody's in here now. Uh how do I is this working? One second. Okay, hi Jim Carrey. I guess it's working. Uh I'm just checking one more thing before I actually continue with what I had to say. Uh, okay, first of all, can everyone hear me? If I know you can hear me, then I'll be able to continue. It's not coming in properly. Okay. Uh, wait, confusion, you're able to hear me? Okay, everybody else is able to hear me? Okay, all right. Okay, so here we go. I know it's been a while since I have live streamed, and that's mainly because I just took some time away from YouTube. I've still been teaching. Everyone's been asking me, do you still do Skype lessons? And yes, that's mainly what I've been doing over the past year since I haven't been on here. Um, but the reason why I made this particular video today, which is entitled Vocal Myth Exposed, Never Squeeze Your Vocal Cords, is because this is a common topic that's been coming up a lot for uh, for my students that I've been working with over the past few months with a lot of people, not just one or two, like the overwhelming majority. This has been a common theme, and I found that there are some misconceptions about this idea, and I'm gonna quickly get into some of them today because I believe it can help you, a lot of you out there, get some vocal progress. This is information that I've had for some time. I've known it for some years now, but I've been very hesitant about sharing it with the public just simply because number one, it can be easily misunderstood, and also two, it's also a controversial topic. It causes a lot of people are going to have their own opinions on it. So I'm going to share with you my opinions. Give me one second. You said it's too low. Uh, I'm going to try something here. Okay, let's see. I'm going to try turning it up a little bit more. All right, how about, ooh, that's probably too much. How about now? Is this volume level okay? Is everyone able to hear me okay with this? Okay, I tried increasing it. Okay, perfect. All right, so there's an idea. I had a student just the other day that said this to me. One of the things that I've been emphasizing to everyone over the past few years is your chest voice needs to be strong. Your chest voice is the foundation of your voice. And if that is not functioning correctly, everything else that you try to do with your voice doesn't have a foundation to operate off of. It all becomes more difficult. So, in one of my last live streams that I did, the one that was on the mixed voice, the really long one, in the beginning of that, where I was kind of breaking down what to do, how to go about your mixed voice, I said one of the things is your chest voice, you need to have a solid voice. Like, you need to be able to easily go loudly. Hold on, let me make sure this isn't going to clip. You need to be able to easily find volume, like, ah! You should be able to do things like that very easily. Like, it should not be hard for you to go loud. That is fundamental number one for everything else to build in the voice. And if you can't do that, then that means you've got some remedial work to do to get to just a simple baseline. So, one of the things that I found with that is when your chest voice is operating correctly, there is a very unique sensation that a lot of people feel that goes along with that, and it shocks them. They say, it feels like something in my throat is squeezing. And I say, yes! I said that's your vocal cords holding together. That's your vocal cord closure coming in a much more profound way. That is a correct sensation. And everyone goes, what? They go, wait. I thought I was never supposed to feel anything in my throat. I thought I was never supposed to feel anything squeezing and blah, 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 blah. No, I'm going to make a few clarifications to that. Yes, you will feel the squeeze. It comes from right here, right in the dead center of your throat where your vocal cords are. It feels like you're holding your breath very tightly as though you have to dive underwater and you don't want any water to get into your lungs. Like you're holding like with a vice grip like this. It's going to kind of feel like that. This is the place where I'm holding my breath at right now and I'm trying to speak at the same time. Like this. I'm exaggerating it so you hear it, but that's what it's going to feel more like. Now, that is an exaggeration, but it is along the lines of what you need. You're going to feel some of that. If you're using your chest voice and you're singing into your voice correctly and you're getting volume out of your voice correctly and you have stability in your voice. So it's not just that you can go loud, it's can you go loud and hold out that note and be stable. So for men, you need to be able to do that at least up to the F above middle C. I don't care if you're a bass. Even the basses that I work with have had to learn to do that. At least up to an F above middle C. Where you can go like, ah, and you can just sit there. And I can sit there and I can stay on this note and hold it all day long. I can just do that. That when you get to the point where you can just sit and speak on a note like that, and it's simple and easy to do, meaning you can do it with stability, then you're good. So women, you need to be able to do that at least up to a high C, at least up to a tenor high C, so a C5. Preferably for men, you want to at least know how to do it up to an F, but it's better if you learn how to do that up to an A, a high A, so an A4. With women, it's better if you learn how to do it up to an E5, so the E above tenor high C. But those are baseline fundamentals that you're going to need. So yes, when you first find it, it feels like something in the throat right here is being squeezed, like it's being held. Now, I want to make a distinction. If it feels like the squeeze is happening from up here, if you feel like you're being strangled at the top of your neck, right under the chin, that's something different. That's what we can call a wrong kind of squeeze. But when you're first learning, that tends to occur with the correct squeeze from here. So you get one element that's correct, and then another element that's wrong at the same time. So you get the feeling of holding back the air, of holding back your breath like this, really, really strongly. You get that part, but then you get this up here squeezing with it at the same time. So I tell people this is why you have to work it in stages, because you have to gradually build it, because more than likely when you first start, you're going to have other stuff active with it that should not be active. That's just the name of the game of learning something new. You're going to overdo some things, at least when it comes to a motor skill. And this is a motor skill. You're going to have certain things active that shouldn't be in there, but it's unavoidable. So if you keep it to a point where you can comfortably do it at first, as high and as loud as you can comfortably do that at first, and then you hang out there for a few weeks to let it stabilize. As time goes on, you start to realize, oh, I don't have to do this other little thing in there with it so much. So instead of being more like this, where this is squeezing here, but this is also squeezing up here too, it becomes a little bit more like this, where you get a little bit of a deeper sound. So this releases here, but I still have this feeling of like holding the breath here at the same time. Okay? That's what you need. All right? And there's more nuance to it beyond that, because what you learn as you continue to practice it more is that there are stages, there are degrees to which you can engage the squeeze in the vocal cords. Again, this squeeze in the vocal cords is your vocal cord closure. It's the cord closure, but you digging into the deeper layers of your vocal cords, which is what you need when you're developing the strength of your chest voice. Okay? So a few tips. Don't try to do this in your speaking range. If you try to do this in your speaking range, it's going to feel over squeezed. You kind of have to be in a little bit of a high-ish range, as though you're calling out to get someone's attention, as though you're whining about something like, oh, I don't know, like what, like someone's irritating you and you're whining, like leave me alone, just go away, like kind of in a range like that. That's kind of where you have to be to find this sensation. Or another way it can feel is like once you're in that range, then the sensations, like I said, is either like something squeezing here in the dead center of the throat, or it feels like you're grunting slightly to move a heavy piece of furniture. Like you're going like, or like you're constipated and you're straining when having a bowel movement, like, but you have to play around with it a little bit to the point where it still feels like you're holding back the air. It still feels like you're holding your breath, but the sound, you're actually getting a sound that comes out. So if you get a sound to come out, that means that if you hold your vocal cords so tightly, like extremely as tight as you can, you will get zero sound that comes out. You'll just get that, nothing. It'll feel like you're holding your breath, but nothing comes out. If you get sound coming out, it means your vocal cords have loosened up just a hair, just enough to let them vibrate. So you go from and you'll start getting that. Now, if you start letting them loosen up too much, you'll start getting something that probably what you're trying to go for initially when you're singing. When you go, something like this. This is not holding any resistance in your vocal cords. This is not giving you a foundation to operate from. This is no foundation. So the reason why a lot of this, the sound is still low. I'm sorry. I thought I turned it up and I thought it was actually clipping. I didn't want it to clip when I did the sound demonstrations, but I'll try turning it up a little bit more. Okay. So, yeah, you want that sensation in the throat of holding back the air. And at first you're going to overdo it. When you first do it and you first do it correctly, you're going to sound like a dying animal. You're going to sound like a dying dog. You're going to sound like an old man, that's kind of like this, and is like 70, 80 years old, and he's just really kind of worn out. You're going to sound like this at first. Okay? That's not a long-term thing. It's just a stage that you go through when you're first finding this proper chord closure that you need. Okay? So you're going to end up with that first, and then you start making little adjustments to it where you see if you just back off it just a hair. And when I say just a hair, I mean it's like only like that much. So the difference between I just backed off just a little bit, and if I back off just a hair more, then I get something that I can use in songs, but something that also gives me stability. That feels very firm and it feels very stable. It doesn't feel like it's about to shake or like it's about to get, like you're about to break or like you're about to crack. It feels like you have a very firm, solid hold on what you're doing, okay? And then over time, when you start messing with dynamics more, that's just a matter of backing off of that a little bit more. So I go like, I'm just doing it to a less intense degree now. But what I am not doing is going, where there's no attempt made at all to hold back the air, to engage your vocal cords underneath of what you're doing. So let's take, for instance, someone who has this sound very prominently in its kind of middle development stages, so to speak, is Stevie Wonder. Particularly Stevie Wonder in his... Stevie Wonder is really good to study for this because he went through different stages in his career. And like every decade of his career, he kind of sang differently because of different developments in his voice. So in the 60s, Stevie Wonder tended to sing much darker, but also he was missing a little bit of chord closure at times. And that's what made him have trouble going high. In the 70s, he started kind of getting a little more chord closure, but it still wasn't all the way where it should have been. It's like kind of in between. When he got to the mid-80s, 1985, I believe around that time is when he started working with Seth Riggs, if I'm not mistaken, because of the problems he was having on tour. Well, anyway, you'll hear his voice has this more like kind of sound like this, a little bit more squeeze sounding like this. It gets a little bit more of this where he's holding back the air more, and that's what helps him to get more consistency in the voice. Now, he had it the best and the most balanced around 1985, 1986. By the time he got to the early 90s, he started doing that thing that I talked about where he has a squeeze, the vocal cord closure engaging, but then up here, he started engaging more of these muscles like this at the same time with it, so it gets kind of like this sounding, kind of like that. That's what he started doing more of as time went on. And that habit has just become more exaggerated as the years have gone by. So that's tied in a little bit with the nasality that he has. There are other reasons for it, but just know that that's a rough example of kind of like the sound that you might want to shoot for at first. Okay? So, all right. So if I take actually one of his songs, this is a perfect example. So if I go, what's the key? So if this is Ribbon in the Sky. This one's hard to sing if you don't have enough of that squeeze in your voice. So if I do it without the squeeze, the way most people are trying to approach their voices, where they're trying to keep the air flowing, where they're trying to keep everything flowing and not feel anything in their throat, if you do that, it sounds like this. Oh, there we go. Oh, so long for this night I pray that a star would guide you my way. And it's hard to be stable. It's hard to be stable when you do that. It makes a pleasant sound in terms of it doesn't sound too loud, it doesn't sound too obtrusive, but for you as a singer, it makes a lot of instability. It's like you feel like if you had to sit and hold that note out longer than what I just did, longer than what the actual time is in the song, like you'd be just wobbling all around, and it's like you don't have a firm ground to stand on, so you just have to sing it really, really, really softly because you feel like if you go any louder than that, it feels unstable and it feels uncomfortable in the throat. That's because your chest voice is not working. You don't have enough of the squeeze, versus if you listen to Stevie sing it, he's more like, oh, so long for this night I pray that a star would guide you my way. When I have a little bit more of this feeling of holding back the air, this squeeze in the throat like this, to share with me this special place where a ribbon in the sky for our love. If you don't have that, then when that jump comes in, you're going to be screwed. Because that's where a ribbon in the sky. That's where you really have to tap into that more of this ribbon in the sky, where you have to really go like, That's what it feels like you have to do underneath of that note. If you try to go, there's a rib, and you try to keep it really light like this, it'll make you strain here more because there's no stability and there's nothing resisting the airflow. That will make you strain. Okay? So, it's a very visceral feeling in the body when you have this quote-unquote squeeze in the voice. It feels like something from the abs, like the lower abs. Your abdominal muscles, all throughout your torso, it feels like your entire torso gets involved under the sound, okay? So you can't do this too softly. If you do it too softly, the air pressure does not build up correctly. You have to be like this, like you're annoyed. Or like you're just really annoyed about something, or kind of angry, or kind of being commanding or demanding with someone. You have to be like that. If you're too much like this, and you try to do it like this, and you try to find it from here, and then try to go louder from here, that's too much air flowing. That's too much air. That's unstable. That does not work. Okay? So, I hope that clears up a little bit of these misconceptions. And one more thing I want to say about that is the reason why some of these misconceptions have occurred is this whole idea of keeping the air flowing. When you do this correctly, there is a sense that, I don't want to say airflow, but the sound is going constantly. So if you've ever listened to little kids, and when I say little kids, I mean like age 1, 2, maybe 3, when they're whining or complaining about something, they're really good examples of, Mom, I know that one of really keeping the sound going the whole time, and they kind of really drag out all of their words like this, and they don't ever, back off of the sound. They just keep this. That's keeping the air flowing. But what a lot of people confuse that with is this sense of airflow in the throat, of letting air pass through your vocal cords. What's supposed to happen is when air comes up from your lungs, your vocal cords are supposed to close together and resist against it and convert all of the air into sound energy. When you go for a sound like this, that's you're getting some air being converted into sound energy, but you're also getting some air leaking through your vocal cords. And that's an inefficient system. So your vocal cords have to really get used to resisting the air strongly. And at first you have to exaggerate that feeling in order to find it. So I'll get to that question in a second, Samuel. But, okay, so, yeah, that's the airflow. If you go for this feeling of, the air in your throat like this, where it's almost like you're kind of like you're fogging up glasses to clean them, or like you have some soup that's really hot in front of you and you're blowing it off, like, or maybe like trying to fog up a mirror, something like that. That is not the feeling of air flowing past your vocal cords. You do not want that in your voice. That's fine if you're singing really, really softly. As long as you're only singing like, so if I go back to that song and I go like, oh, so long for this night I pray that a star would guide you my way. As long as I'm singing like really, 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 really softly like that, then yes, you do get more of a sense of airflow. And this is where the confusion comes from, because a lot of that idea comes from female classical singers, women who are doing classical music. That is closer to how they sing. Because their vocal cords are not vibrating in as deep of a layer compared to when a man sings, or a woman singing like contemporary music like pop or R&B or something like that, where it's basically the same as how a man sings. When you're not going into the deeper layers of the vocal cords like that, they don't resist the air as strongly, and you do get more of a sense of airflow. So if I go like, if I do something like that, yes, there is a lot more of a sense of airflow. But if you have to do more dynamic demands than something like that, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. You need to get the vocal cords to resist the air, and it feels like they're squeezing. It feels like something in the dead center of the throat here is squeezing. That feels like resisting the air. Like that. I'm exaggerating it so you hear it, but that's what it feels like, and that's what it sounds like at first. Okay? So don't be afraid of that sensation. That is a sensation that you need, and you do not shy away from that. Now, to get to Samuel's question, what if somebody is doing this too much? How do you know it is flow phonation and not pressed or not airy? When you do this correctly, what a lot of people call pressed singing, that's actually what you need to do. That's closer to what it feels like you're doing. It feels like you're pressing something together. You need that. That is fundamental strength that you need in your voice. Most people that I'm coming across these days don't have enough of that, and that's why they have the problems that they do. Now, when you get to a point where that gets really strong, then what I was saying before, I don't know if you were in that part of the call, you have to start paying attention to how you're saying your vowels. So if I go like, people will call that pressed. And that does feel like straining a little bit. It still feels stable, but it also feels like there's a little strain in it at the same time. Not a lot, just like a little, like, the feeling is more like you're being strangled. Like someone has a noose around your neck and they're just pulling it tight. Like it's just like that the whole time, but it's like you can actually stay on the note. That means that you have the chord closure, you have the squeeze going correctly, but you're shaping the vowel incorrectly to where it's coming more from up here. So that's where you have to start getting into vowel modification. Vowel modification is what alleviates that. Particularly work on your oo vowel. That's why I've been emphasizing work on oo for so long. In that video that I made, how do you sing high notes in chest voice? And I gave 2 exercises in there. And the second one was singing on ooh. It was for that reason. And half of the people who watched that video did not even bother doing the ooh because they're like, oh, I just want to go because it's easier to do that at first because you do feel more stable when you do that. And I'm like, okay, but that's only going to get you on stage. You have to work on ooh to learn how to balance that out more. That creates the gateway for finding a better balance in that. It's not backing off of this, at least not at first. It's finding this, ooh, 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 ooh. It's finding that. Not, ooh, ooh, ooh. That will cause this up here to strain more. It's, ooh, ooh. It's a really, really deep sound. And then, once you find that, you're going to over-exaggerate that at first. You're going to do it too deep. Because what that does, when you lower the larynx, it causes that chord closure to lessen slightly. So that's a more efficient way of backing off it rather than just completely saying, okay, I'm just going to lessen that pressure. No, you lessen the pressure by using your vowels correctly and going for the right sound. Then you learn to work with it more over time to see, can you find smaller gradients in it. So at first, all you may be able to find is, so you find this, oh, and you find that, and that may be all you can get at first. And that's going to pave the way for you to be able to back off of it a little bit more and then go, oh, oh. Well, I'm doing it still, but now it's just to a lesser, more refined degree. Oh, oh, oh. Instead of, oh, 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 oh. This is less. Oh, 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 oh. And you see, I can push on it more as I need to go louder, and that's what's supposed to happen. That as you go louder, it should naturally kick in more, that feeling of squeeze and holding back the air. It doesn't necessarily kick in that way for everyone. A lot of people have become so divorced from that natural habit that it has to be trained back in. And that's why you need lessons. Most people are going to need lessons in order to find this, because there are other little nuances and things that come into play here where that will affect this. But as a general rule, this squeeze, this vocal cords resisting the airflow, it protects your voice. That is your protection of your voice. When air is going past your vocal cords, especially when you're trying to sing louder and you're singing high and loud, that is dangerous. That dries out your vocal cords and it irritates them, and that's when they get damaged. It's better to be over squeezed and not let any extra air come through the cords than it is to let this extra air flow through the cords, even if it sounds nicer on recordings at first. So I hope that answers the question. Yeah, this is a bit of the Valsalva maneuver. It is. It's the Valsalva maneuver, but like I said, there are some nuances to it. It's at first you want to do it on open vowels, like ah. It's the same thing as what I said in that video, on the first video I did on, like, what is it? This is still that live stream I did on the mixed voice, the really long one. In the first couple of hours of that video, I gave the template of saying you need to develop their ah, oh, eh, ah. You should be able to go loud on those first, at least up through the notes that I mentioned earlier. So for men, at least up to A, or at least up to the F above middle C, the F4. For women, at least up to the C5, the tenor high C. Then once you get that, you're more than likely going to be doing it with a high larynx at first. But if you keep your mouth open, like this, that alleviates some of this high larynx tension that kicks in here. So you have to know how to go like, ah, ah, like someone just dropped a hammer on your foot and you're like, ah. For most people, the mouth would reflexively open in like a state of shock, like, ah, and you have to get used to doing that, cultivating that specifically, instead of trying to go, ah, 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 like this with the mouth very closed. That will cause you to get more bound up here. That will increase that tension here. Ha ha, and a beat, mouth open. Once you get that, then you start working on your closed vowels. You start working on ooh specifically, and you start working on e and getting those lined up throughout that same range. And then you have to start working on your bridge range, which is going to be some vowel modification. Ooh naturally makes it harder to keep this squeeze in the voice, because let's call that, it's an anti-squeeze vowel. It's the vowel that makes the vocal cords want to relax the most. So you actually have to work harder to keep the squeeze in a ooh compared to any other vowel. Okay? So, like I said, it's a process. Hey, Victoria! How you doing? Good to see you on the call. It's been a while. And then King, good to see you here too. I know it's been a while since I've seen a lot of you. But anyway, that's something that needs to be worked on, and it gets worked on in stages, and it gets worked on over time. And also be aware that as you develop this, you can get it, and then it can get weak again. So then you have to go back and strengthen it again. And depending on how you sing, if you spend a lot of time singing really softly, like, really trying to go for this really light sound like this, and you just spend a lot of time there, and you don't spend any time being loud and engaging this, it will get weak. It will get weak, and then you'll have problems again, and then you have to re-strengthen this again and go through all these stages again. So that's a necessary part of the voice that needs to be strong. So, all right. I gotta run now. Are there any final questions? Thank you, Victoria. Samuel. Yes, you more than likely will see me. I have some videos that I'm actually working on. Like I have a few before and after videos of people who had to learn this very thing that I'm talking about, where the reason, like, they were like, oh, I'm straining in my voice so much and I don't know why I can't deal with my break, and my voice keeps breaking every time I get there, and like, what's going on? And just about every single one of them, it's been the exact same issue. They had not enough of this squeeze active in their voice, and they had to work really, really hard at first of like really kind of holding back the air like this, and like really holding your breath very strongly, and you're going to sound like this at first, and you have to learn to do this, and it's not going to be something that you can use in songs at first, but it's a coordination that has to get strong within you. You have to really develop that. Brendan Urie does it. Yes, he has it in his voice. With most singers, if you're listening to them. Oh, hey, Carl. I didn't even know that you were watching this. Nice to have you here. With most of the singers that you listen to. Okay, there's one more tip. You'll hear it in singers in terms of the way they start the sound. You'll hear them start with this little, it's almost a creak, but it's not a vocal fry. It's like, I'm trying to think of a song. It has to be a word that starts with a vowel for you to really hear it. Like that Stevie Wonder song. There's oh so long, oh, as opposed to oh. Like some people actually put an H in front of the sound and go oh in order to not make their vocal cords squeeze. Don't do that H thing. That's going to weaken your chord closure. That's useful when you're trying to learn to sing. That does have a usefulness, but it's not useful for building the foundation of your voice. That's useful for when trying to learn to go really soft. Really soft. I mean, like kind of whisper, like kind of volume. But for the most part, when you're building your foundation, you need this little and it's not just getting this sound of a vocal fry, like where you go like It's not doing that. I must emphasize, this is a very visceral, physical feeling. It's a physical feeling that comes from your whole body, like your whole torso here engages as you make this sound. Because this is what happens. Okay. All right. So, if you hold your vocal cords together very tightly, like you are going underwater and you don't want any air to get into, or any water to get into your lungs, like you're trying to hold, like a vice grip, like that. When your vocal cords are held that tightly, it requires a strong amount of air pressure to overcome that resistance in them. And as that air pressure is building up, what happens is your ab muscles here, they start engaging more. Like especially down here, like the lower ab region, but even like kind of around the belly button too, they start engaging and squeezing more. And that puts more pressure on your lungs, which puts more pressure against your vocal cords. And after a certain minimum threshold of pressure, they will make sound. They will start to vibrate. So if I go like, that's why you hear that little, that's why you hear that little sound in there, because that's when it's overcoming, that's when it's first starting to overcome that minimum air pressure. Okay, that's different than doing a vocal fry. A vocal fry is like you just sit there and you be lazy and you don't do anything in your body, and it's not this visceral, physical feeling. It's just like, it's like you give no energy in the sound, just like, that's different. That won't really develop the thing that I'm talking about. This is a literal push that comes from your abdomen against closed vocal cords. A push in terms of building up air pressure. A buildup of air pressure. That's what you're looking for. Okay. I hope that clarifies it. Are there any other questions? I'm trying to think who else does it. You tend to hear it in female singers a lot more than you do in male singers, but in male singers that sing correctly, like if you're listening to a male singer, it has to be someone who's not afraid to sing out, who's not afraid to sing loudly. If it's someone who's singing strongly, like Brendan Urie, like especially in his Bohemian Rhapsody performance, the live one, you can hear him like having this kind of closure against this, like, sense of holding back there. You'll hear him doing that. He does it like almost throughout the whole performance, especially when he's singing like what is the key of that? It's like once that little key change happens, that mama, oh, didn't mean to make you cry. Like right here, like in that part of the song, you really kind of hear this resistance against the air a lot. And if you kind of sat on it and just spoke on it, it would kind of sound like this at first. Okay, at first. Don't be afraid of that stage. That is a stage that you go through as you're learning to tweak it and whatnot more. The best way to do this, to get this down, is at first start out on just a vowel sound. Can you hold it with comfort and stability? Those are two words, comfort and stability. It should feel comfortable and stable. It'll feel unusual in your throat. When you have the sense of something like squeezing in your throat like this, it feels unusual, but it should not feel uncomfortable. That's an important distinction to make. It'll feel unusual, but it should feel stable. Unusual and stable. That's what you're looking for. Once you can do that, then you need to be able to speak on a pitch, like in a long, drawn-out way where you're holding out the vowels. So like if you go like, mama, like that. Like literally like a little child that's whining and annoying. They do this all the time. So every single one of you, you've all done this when you were kids, but somewhere along the way, a lot of you have forgotten what this feels like and how to do it and how to tap into it. You're like, but why? I don't understand what's going on. Like, I could really just sit and keep going like this for much longer. Like, this doesn't take a lot of air to do. It's just holding out the sound and keeping this feeling of squeeze in your throat. That's all it is. Once you can do that easily on a pitch, like I can do that on every single pitch. So I was just doing it here. I can do that same thing here. I can do that same thing here. I can do that same thing here. I can do it here. And I'll do it here. And I'll do it here. It just keeps going. No, that by that time I was out of breath. But when you get to the point where you can literally speak on a pitch, then you own that note. Then you get to the point where it's easier to do in songs because you're just doing that on different pitches. That's all you're doing. That's it. When you try this in higher fourth octave, it gets too twangy and annoying. when you get, if you're a guy and you get to the fourth octave, again, that issue is that's when vowel modification starts to kick in a little bit. So there are other little, the stages that you work through. If you're a guy, you get it stable and loud and solid up to the F first, up to the F4. Then you have to start working on your oo vowel up to the F4, which is going to make the voice get darker. Not oo like ooh, not that one. You need ooh, ooh, like that. It's a very ooh, deep kind of sound, like that. Ooh, like you've just been kicked in your gut. Like when they show people in like movies and stuff, when they've just been like the epic fight scenes and they've just been kicked in their gut and they're going like and they just show them like, you know, falling backwards and all that kind of stuff. It's like literally that kind of sound. That's a very particular coordination that kicks in the voice. And it has to start kicking in more, particularly when you get to your first bridge range. If that's not kicking in to some degree, then it will make that thing where you're talking about where you say the voice gets too twangy sounding and it gets too thin sounding and blah, 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 blah. That will happen. Okay? But yeah, so you would start working on getting that around the F, around your first bridge range. So around your F, F sharp, G, G sharp. And for women, that would be tenor high C, C sharp, D5, D sharp 5. Then once you can get it to there, then there's other stuff that you have to do. Then that's when you start working on trying to do it with a little bit less pressure, where you try to back off a little bit, but still staying in that kind of deeper kind of sound. So like this, like you're gonna sound like this at first, and then you learn to back off of that just a little bit, and you see it starts to normalize some. I'm still holding my breath. It's just I back off just a little bit, like that. And I can still hold it out. I can still do the exact same things. It's just I'm not doing it as intensely. And those are the stages that it works in. Okay, Carl asked another good question. With female singers, I find a lot of female singers are afraid of this. Okay, so there's another misconception that I need to put out there. Like I mentioned before, this squeeze thing, it protects your voice. And I know a lot of people say, well, your vocal cords are really tiny. They're only like this big and they can only withstand so much pressure. I don't think people realize how much pressure your vocal cords can withstand. They're made, they have two functions. One, the main function of your vocal cords is involved in respiration. It is to allow air into your lungs. So as you breathe, the vocal cords are supposed to open up like this and let air come into your lungs. And then as you exhale, they're supposed to stay open like that and let air come out of your lungs. And as the demands of respiration increase on your body, they're supposed to open wider to let more air get in and out as necessary so you don't die. If there's something wrong in that process, you will die within minutes. That is the most base function of your vocal cords. Now, the second most base function of your vocal cords is to protect air and foreign objects from getting into your lungs. That means they need to be able to close like a vice grip. Your body is designed to handle that kind of pressure. Now, when it comes to making sound, they can still handle a lot of that pressure, but not quite to that same degree. Not quite to the same degree as if you're trying to lift a heavy piece of furniture. Like if you're trying to move like let's say a washing machine. Oh, that's a really good example. So if you're trying to move a washing machine and you're like pushing like if you do it without making sound, you can put a lot more pressure against your vocal cords compared to if you make sound. When you make sound, you have to ease off of that pressure just a little bit. So you go like enough to where you get that grunting kind of sound, like to where you get kind of that sound, and then you make little fine-tuned adjustments from there to where it feels comfortable to you, where you back off it just a little bit, but you still get a lot of that feeling of holding back the air. So women, don't be afraid of that. It is going to take some experimentation, and you need to kind of find it in stages. I find guys tend to actually be more afraid of it than women are these days, which is really interesting. There are women who are more willing to go for that than guys. Guys are the ones who have the bigger problem with it. Because women, if you've had kids, you probably have experienced some of that pressure during childbirth. So you're kind of already familiar with it. You have a very visceral sense of what it's like to go, ah! And to push and have this full body engagement as you're making sound. Now, that's still an exaggeration of things, but it is in that direction. Okay. And like I said, work it in ranges. Don't try to do too much at once. It needs time to develop and stabilize, and it stabilizes in these various stages like I've been outlining. So, any other questions before I have to run? Okay, all right, sounds good. All right, well, in that case, I am out of here. You're going to be seeing, like I said, some other videos up soon of singers that I work with who personally had to go through this, like before and afters. And every single one of them is going to tell you how important it is, this idea of like really learning to hold back the breath like this and like really resist it. They're going to tell you that is the most shocking thing that they ever had, but it's what made a big difference of learning how to do that. So with that said, again, I will emphasize this point again. Most of you are going to need help working through that, because a lot of you are going to have like little individual habits that you're not even aware of that you're doing, that the overwhelming majority might not do, but it might be something specific to you. So I do still give voice lessons, Skype lessons. You can sign up for them on my website. There'll be a link in the description somewhere, vocalliberation.com/singing-lessons. That's the page for it. But yeah, I am available for one-on-one help. And once you get this, a lot of other things in the voice become 1,000 times easier. Okay? Oh yeah, and one more note. This is related to the hold and curbing. For those of you who are familiar with complete vocal technique, CVT, it's related to that, but it's still not exactly the same thing. Because in my opinion, that hold from curbing is something that you're supposed to have under every single mode, with the exception of neutral. Like whether you're in curbing or edge or overdrive, you should still have this engaged to some degree or another. It's just when they do it for curbing, they just kind of stay within a certain volume range, and they sometimes have a little bit of this tension up in here, built up in there. So it's like, oh, like this, instead of it being, oh, where you get more of a visceral push from your whole body under the sound. So it's like a limited subset of this thing that I'm talking about. All right? Okay, so gotta run now. Hope you guys found that helpful. All right, I'll be looking forward to working with you, Zan, in the future. Have a good day. Bye.